As a candidate, I don't take any corporate PAC money. We are a grassroots campaign. I believe that healthcare is a human right, that everyone should have access to healthcare. And we know that so many of our families are struggling to pay their medical bills, taking the position on abolishing ICE. And a big part of this is because this fight is personal for me. It's actually personal for all of our communities. My husband and I, this is not about enforcement. It's really about terrorizing our Black and Brown communities. My family came here because of war, and I understand the generational trauma that that has on families. And so
Mhm.
I also have two brothers in the military, one that serves in the Air Force and the Marines, and I don't want to be sending them to a war that has no end in sight. We should be seeking diplomacy, centering human rights. And so I am your anti-war candidate. And I don't think we should be spending dollars on an endless wars when we need to be investing. For example, Raj, we talked about healthcare, right? Medicare for all, housing. We need to be investing in systems right here in the United States. Directing the city manager to ensure that we're not sharing data with ICE, that we have a tier response should ICE come into our city. And I plan to do that when I get to the halls of Congress, really oversight of these companies and making sure that we're not sharing this data with ICE. I mean, a big part, it goes back to my position of actually just abolishing ICE and dismantling these agencies that are harming our families. I know that so many of our rural farmers, there's a lot of regulation around water constraints of
Mhm.
accessing water, right? And I think that it's really incredibly important that our farmers are at the tables, our small farmers, not just our big farmers, but our small farmers are at the table. I think when we champion issues around healthcare, housing, childcare, around immigration rights, that is when we win because we are actually improving the social conditions of people's lives, right? And that's if that means being a progressive.
You're a child of refugee family
Yeah.
who fled the war, who have been here. You were born here. You've seen those kind of things. Our community, the Sikh Americans, have seen the same kind of thing. How do you see the similarities, and where do you stand on transnational repression?
I actually support the prosecution of the Indian government agents that plotted to murder Sikhs in our country. I've called on the federal government. I've called on the federal government, our state government, to provide more protection and funding. And as a congresswoman, my commitment is I would call on the federal government to increase funding to protect members of our community, members of our local Sikh community that have been warned by the FBI that their lives are at risk.
Do you believe in 1984 genocide was committed against Sikhs by the Indian state?
Yes.
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਰੇਡੀਓ USA ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਟੀਵੀ USA ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਰਾਜਕਨਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ। ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੁਝ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਹੋਰ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਕਰਵਾਈ ਹੈ, ਇਸੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸਿਟੀ ਕੌਂਸਲ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਰਹੇ ਮਾਈ ਵੈਂਗ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੈਕਰਾਮੈਂਟੋ ਤੋਂ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਰਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਦੀ 7th ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਤੋਂ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। Now I have with me Miss Mai Vang. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hi, Raj. Thank you so much. Such an honor to be here today to join you virtually. So thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know
Yeah.
you're a children of Hmong refugees. From where right now I am sitting, there is a huge population of Hmong people over here in Fresno County. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, Raj, thank you again so much for having me on. And yeah, first, my name is Mai Vang, and I am the proud daughter of Hmong refugees. I was born and raised in Sacramento, California, and I'm the eldest of 16 children in my family. I have six sisters and nine brothers. I'm a current city council member, and I represent the most southern part of the city of Sacramento. And I know that in this moment, so many of our communities, our Punjabi communities, our Sikh community, so many of our communities and our diverse families are living in fear under this authoritarian administration. And I'm running for Congress because I really believe that the people we elect to the halls of Congress needs to understand the day-to-day struggles of our working families. I'm also a newlywed as well. I'm married to a son of Mexican immigrants. And so, my husband and I, we know what it means to struggle in this economy and so many of our working families shouldn't have to work this hard just to get by. And the person that I'm actually running against is the current Congresswoman. Her and her husband have been in the seat for almost half a century, almost 47 years. And she is a multimillionaire, married to a billionaire. She doesn't understand the day-to-day struggles of our working families. And so I'm running. Because we need to send bold and courageous fighters to represent our families. I've been a fighter my entire life. I've been a community organizer, a council member, organizing for our families, and I have a track record of getting things done. And I just incredibly honored to be here to join you today. And yeah.
Thank you for telling me about yourself. Thank you for that introduction. Tell me, what are the main issues you are running on right now? As you just mentioned, you're running against the incumbent who has been in this office for so long. You both guys belong to, I think, the same party, but still there are a lot of differences. Tell me the issues you're running on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm running on several issues. One, let me just start off by saying, yes, we're both Democrats, but we have very stark differences. One, as a candidate, I don't take any corporate PAC money. We are a grassroots campaign. And some of the
Mhm.
issues that I'm running on, for example, Medicare for all, the current Congresswoman does not support. I believe that healthcare is a human right, that everyone should have access to healthcare. And we know that so many of our families are struggling to pay their medical bills. We see premiums going up, and we know that these health insurance companies and big pharma, they're making a profit. They're padding their profits off of the pain and suffering of our families. And so I'm a supporter of Medicare for all. Doris Matsui is not a big part of that. Is because she takes money from big pharma and health insurance companies, and so I think it's really important that we push for Medicare for all, and I will be a champion for that. Another issue is really around ICE. Another issue why I decided to run for office is because I really
Mhm.
believe that we don't have elected leaders that represents us right now that will take a bold and courageous position on ICE. I've taken the position on abolishing ICE, and a big part of this is because this fight is personal for me. It's actually personal for all of our communities. My husband and I have family and loved ones that wake up every morning afraid if they're going to be separated from ICE. And I've taken the position on abolishing ICE because
That's a
we can.
pretty hard stance to take right
It
now,
is.
with all the things happening right now.
Yeah, and let me share with you why. I don't think that you could reform an agency that is killing U.S. citizens or immigrants and refugees, that's pulling people over based on, the color of their skin, the language that they speak. I know that our Sikh community, our Punjabi community, our diverse community, not just our, our Hmong and our Latino communities, are targeted by ICE, and we can't reform an agency that is Trump's secret police force. ICE didn't exist before 2003, and we can still exist without ICE. This is not about enforcement. It's really about terrorizing our Black and Brown communities. And so that's one of my position as well. And yeah, at the end of the day, this is really also about taking dark money out of politics. I think many of the seats in the halls of Congress are bought by corporation, and that's the reason why I don't take any corporate PAC money, and this is just a grassroots campaign by the people for the people.
If elected, how would you tackle this issue, the dark
Well,
money?
one, oh, how would I tackle the issue of PAC money?
Hmm.
One, I would champion making sure that we overturn Citizens United. I would champion making sure that congressional reps don't trade stocks. The Congresswoman right now, she actually has stocks she trades, and so I know that this illegal war that Trump is pulling us into, she profits off of that because she has investment in war manufacturer companies. When someone's detained, these companies that contracts with ICE make a profit off of it. She also is supported by these companies. And so I think getting dark money out of politics is of utmost importance. And I would champion banning congressional stock trade. I would push for overturning Citizens United, and making sure that we get money out of politics so that the people that are in the halls of Congress represents us, the working families.
If elected, what would be your first bill would you want it to become a law?
Well, healthcare is a human right. I'm a big proponent of making sure that we have healthcare for every person in this country, and so I would champion Medicare for all. That is of utmost importance, and I would also champion and moving my colleagues to make sure that we have comprehensive immigration reform.
Okay. Uh, so Medicare for all, we are looking at right now the Medicare being cut, those things. We are seeing cuts in those kind of programs. So is there a way, which committees or which way would you try to tackle that thing? Because right now there's a dire situation for a lot of people thinking that we might not even survive.
Yeah. Well, I think a big part of this on the Medicare for All is we need bold and courageous champions. I mean, we have folks in the halls of Congress right now that doesn't even have that position because they're bought by corporations. And so we actually first need to elect leaders that have that bold and courageous vision to actually push us to do that. The second piece is also making sure that the leaders that we send to the halls of Congress, that we are very vocal in pushing for legislation that would block bombs for endless wars. Right, the Congresswoman right now hasn't signed on to several bills that would actually block bombs to Israel. She has signed on actually a few months ago. She sent about 3.3 billion to Israel, and I think it's
Hmm.
really important that we spend our tax dollars here on our healthcare system, on our education system, on housing, and so those are the issues that I would champion. I am also your anti-war candidate, and I share that because as a daughter of refugee, my family came here because of war, and I understand the generational trauma that has on families. And so
Mhm.
I also have two brothers in the military, one that serves in the Air Force and the Marines, and I don't want to be sending them to a war that has no end in sight. We should be seeking diplomacy, centering human rights. And so I am your anti-war candidate. And I don't think we should be spending dollars on an endless wars when we need to be investing. For example, Raj, we talked about healthcare, right? Medicare for all, housing. We need to be investing in systems right here in the United States.
There's a lot of talk in Washington D.C. about waste and fraud in these kind of programs. Like, do you see there is waste and fraud in these kind of programs? Should it be audited? Should these be put under a microscope?
I would say that we have systems in place already that are pretty tough on our federal programs. The people that are committing fraud are the billionaires and this administration that is profiting off of the pain and suffering of our families. I mean, these are critical programs that I will share with you, Raj. You know, I grew up in South Sacramento in Meadowview. I am a product of Medicaid and our food stamps program. And had it not been for these critical safety net program, I would not be here today in front of you and have the opportunities that I have. So many of these programs do good, and I believe in good government. If I didn't, I wouldn't have run for Congress. I believe that government by the people can be a force for good to change people's life. Many of these programs have already audits and checks and balances in place, but the people that are actually, that are fraud, waste, and abuse are folks. Are the corporations who are profiting off of the pain and suffering of our working families.
Hmm. Uh, uh, as a city council member, do you think that job has made you a better candidate for this Congress seat?
Yeah, I would, Raj, I will share with you how I govern at the local level is how I will
Hmm.
govern at the federal level. And I'm
Please.
a community organizer at heart. Every policy decision that I make comes with working with community. I believe in co-governance. I believe that as an elected official, your job is to be a good steward with the community to co-create these policy. So, for example, as a councilwoman, I was so proud when Trustee Jasit Singh reached out to me and shared with me that Sikhs weren't able to enter City Hall because they were wearing a kirpan, and I
Hmm.
thought absolutely unacceptable. So we actually agreed to work together to build a strategy to change our city code. Just a few months ago, the city of Sacramento, our council. Did a unanimous vote to actually pass this policy. City Councilwoman Katie Maple helped champion through Law and Ledge, but it was really through the advocacy of Jasit, his advocacy, Jakar movement, the community, that we were able to make this happen. And it is actually a very important victory for our entire communities, not just for the Sikh community, but for all of our diverse community. Because when every member of our community can participate in government, I know that means it's about creating a city, creating a region, creating a state, a country where everyone feels like they belong and they should be able to participate fully in government as their whole self.
Yeah, recently there was the Sikh Heritage Month proclamation. Sikhs went with Kirpans first time in the city hall.
Yeah.
It was a good moment, like long time coming. Should have been done earlier, but well, it's never too late.
It's never too late. But I absolutely agree with you. It's a long time coming and it should have been done earlier. But I'm so proud of the advocacy and the work of the community. And so I share this example because every policy that I work on, I am always organizing with community, and I will do that. I absolutely will do that when I get to the halls of Congress. For example, right now, I think it's so important that we have champions that can stand up against Trump. Like right now, he's trying to revoke immigrant driver's license, right? And
Yeah.
as a daughter of refugee myself, I stand with all of our refugee and immigrants in fighting and protecting, making sure that we protect green card holders, to keep truck drivers' license, and to keep our families together, right? We have an administration that is ripping and tearing families apart. Just last week, I had a Hmong elder that came to my campaign office because his son was taken by ICE. Like these are
Hmm.
the lived stories that I see, that I hear, I'm on the ground and I see what's happening. And so I think it's so important in this moment that we have bold and courageous leaders standing up to ICE, standing up to the federal government that's terrorizing our communities.
Miss Wang, you're telling this, like California DMV has been accomplice with the FMCSA. They
Mm,
have been like putting basically the CDL non-domicile serial holders in a limbo. They say they might fight, but eventually now they're going to be sharing data with them nationally. As
yeah.
a Congress, if you're elected as a Congresswoman, do you have any power around that?
Yeah, as a congresswoman, you have oversight on all of these agency that works in the federal government. Let me just share with you, like you know how I share with you, Raj, how I govern at the local level is how I govern at
Hmm.
the national level. I'm leading the effort to make sure that we don't have any data sharing with the federal government. Right
Hmm.
now, as we speak, I'm working on a comprehensive action plan for the city of Sacramento. What is it basically? Directing the city manager to ensure that we're not sharing data with ICE, that we have a tier response should ICE come into our city, and I plan to do that when I get to the halls of Congress. Really, oversight of these companies, and making sure that we're not sharing this data with ICE. I mean, a big part. It goes back to my position of actually just abolishing ICE and dismantling these agencies that are harming our families.
How do you reconcile with the thing that your own party, who in the halls of the Congress are against the war, but you're saying they are funding those bills which give them bombs? How do you reconcile with that?
Well, let me just share this with you. This is the reason why so many voters and residents have lost faith in the Democratic Party and has lost faith in government. It's because many of these politicians are actually bought, right? So even though our party may be against this illegal war that Trump is pulling us in, many of them are funded by the same very corporation and weapon manufacturer that's profiting off a war. And so when
Mhm.
that happens, there's like a conflict of interest. They won't move with a sense of urgency to actually stop this, right? Which is the reason why I don't take any corporate PAC money, which is the reason why I would champion making sure that we don't have congressional reps stock trading, which is why I would champion all of these issues because I don't take money from these corporations. I work for the people at the end of the day, and we need more elected officials in the halls of Congress that are not bought, that they're there fighting for working families. And that is whom I'm going to be fighting for, is the families in this region who needs that love and that support and the systems of care that we desperately need in this country.
So, as you mentioned, the incumbent has been there for so many terms for a very long time. What would you change for your constituents if you are elected? Like, what are the policy changes you want to see those Algro people, your constituents, see? What would Mai Vang do or bring those Algrovians for?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that question. Look, I know that the Matsui family have served this region for over 47 years. And what I can commit to you is that you are going to have a fighter that's going to show up to fight for your families in Elk Grove. I've campaigned in Elk Grove, in El Dorado, and Lodi and Galt. And what I hear time and time again is several things. One, that our families are struggling just to get by in this economy. And what are we going to do to actually fight for our families to make sure that government works for the people? As someone who grew up in South Sacramento, I know how critical these safety nets program. So I'm going to be fighting to ensure that we continue to fund these critical safety net programs, that we have housing. We need to ensure that the federal government puts more resources into building more housing that we could afford. Back to making sure that we can push for Medicare for all. I know I have family in Elk Grove. I think there is this American dream that if you do what's right, you work hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you should be able to just thrive in this country. And we know that the American dream is so far out of reach. I think families in Elk Grove and Lodi and South Sacramento just want to be able to get by, and their kids want to be able to buy a home. I'm part of the millennial generation. Thankfully, I was able to buy a house early because I had a mentor who told me to do it as soon as I can. But so many millennials and Gen Z right now, I mean, the average age to purchase a home is in your 40s. So many young folks are living with their parents now because they can't afford buying a home. And so we have to make that American dream possible again. And that means making sure that we support our systems of care and provide those opportunities.
Mai Vang, Medicare for all has stalled in Congress for so long and repeatedly. Is there a realistic path for it to pass?
Absolutely. There is a realistic path forward. That means all of us organizing and electing leaders who have that bold and courageous vision. You are seeing, Raj, I will share with you, this congressional seat, this race in particular, not just my race, but race across the country. It's more than just a few congressional seats, but it's really about a movement and the future of this country. Just 2 weeks ago, I was honored to join a conversation with candidates and elected officials across this country. I'll name some, like Ayanna Pressley, Graham Plantner, who's running in Maine, Abdul, who's running in Michigan, Summer Lee, lots of candidates and elected officials, Ro Khanna. I was in a space with these folks that talked about when we get in the halls of Congress together in 2026 and in 2028, what does that transformation look like? And a big part of that is electing leaders that are aligned in these values to actually push for this agenda. Because if we don't do that, we're going to lose trust among voters. We have to be bold. We have to be courageous, but it can't just be one person. It's going to be all of us. And so I'm running, yes, for this region, but I am running with a cohort of candidates who care deeply about this country, who wants to see that transformation happen. And so I look forward to becoming the next congresswoman to be an added voice to that movement across the country.
How do you balance support? Like you have immigrants in your communities, and there will be other people who have different views on the enforcement which is taking place. How do you balance it?
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I really believe, as I've been on the campaign trail, that no matter your political views, that we all really do want the same thing. We want our families to be together. We want to live in safe and healthy neighborhoods. The strategy on how to get there may seem a little different, but we still have common ground in terms of what we want. And I'm no stranger in terms of walking into a space that may often not agree with me, but I, unlike the incumbent, will show up always and to talk to my constituent to find a path forward and find common ground. And I will share, as the eldest of 16 children in my family, it trained me well. It trained me well to be an elected official, because when you have 16 opinions in the House, you have to find common ground, right? And I also learned from my elders. My grandpa is a leader. We have 18 Sir last names in the Hmong community, different clans like the Vang clan, the Shone clan, the Lee clan. And as a little girl, I always watched the ways in which my grandpa moved in these meetings when there was conflict, and how he found resolution. And I do believe that at the end of the day, we want the same thing. We just have a different strategy on how to get there. My job is to get us on the same page, to get us moving in that direction. And I've been able to do that work as a school board member, as a city council member, and I trust that I'll be able to do that work when I get to the halls of Congress.
American politics was known for bipartisanship, going across the aisle, getting away from partisan grandstanding, but we are seeing lot and lot more of that. Will you be able to do that?
My focus is on working families, families who are struggling. And so, no matter if you're a Democrat or Republican or a declined state, if you want to make the lives better for working families, then I know that you're on our team. And I know that there are many Republicans declined to state, whether you're an elected official or you're a resident or a voter, that you really care at the end of the day, making sure that your family can thrive. And so we have that shared agenda. And so I absolutely do believe that that we can create a better world together. I absolutely believe that is possible. And the other piece I'll share with you, Raj, is that the future. There's good luck, but the future isn't predetermined. It's shaped by those who are willing to fight for it, those who are willing to show up and do the work and to have those conversations and to push for it. And I've done that work as a community organizer, as an elected, and I'm ready to do that fight. I'm ready to have that fight. I'm ready to have those conversations and to push my colleagues in the same party. It's not just about, at this point, sometimes you can't tell the difference between a Democrat and a Republican because they're all bought by corporations, right? I just want to know, what are your intentions? Are you really here to fight for working families, for our Punjabi families that are struggling to get by, for our Hmong families, for our Latino families, for our indigenous community? Like, are you in this fight to make their lives better? And if you are, then I can work with you.
Miss Mai Vang, your area also constitutes of agricultural land, agricultural area. What is your position on water rights and farm policy? Right now, the farmers are hurting pretty bad. So, what can you do for them?
Yeah. So let me just share you a story. When my family arrived to the United States as
I know
refugees,
Hmong community is very much engraved in farming, just like the
yeah, in
Punjabi community.
agriculture, right? I know that so many of our rural farmers, there's a lot of regulation around water constraints of
Hmm.
accessing water, right? And I think that it's really incredibly important that our farmers are at the tables, our small farmers, not just our big farmers, but our small farmers are at the table to actually shape these policy so that they can have their livelihoods and they can provide for their families and the region. Right, that is of utmost importance. And so I wouldn't be passing any policy without making sure that our local farmers are part of those conversation. And I know that that's been a fight in multiple municipalities, right, in terms of who gets the water. And I want to be able to work across the jurisdiction on that. And I think as a city councilwoman, we have different JPAs, like joint powers agreement
Hmm.
authorities. I want to be able to have these conversations with community and with local electeds to make sure that these water rights, that the water is, that it's fair. It's fair for the farmers and it's fair for the jurisdictions.
Hmm. So you have raised less than half of what your opponent has raised. Like, we know elections are now a money matter as well. Like, you can't
Yeah.
win elections without raising so much money. Uh, how do you want to overcome that gap?
Yeah. As an organizer, I know that the only way to beat organized money is to have organized people. I come to this space as a candidate with an organizing background, and we are running one of the largest field operations this region has ever seen. Over 800 volunteers, folks who are out canvassing, knocking on doors, and yeah, phone banking, writing postcards. But yes, field is important, but I also know you have to raise the funds. Roger, you just brought that up right now. I am proud that our campaign has raised over 700K,
Hmm.
700,000, and we will get to that 1 million. I really trust our path to victory, the work that we've been doing. But what I will share with you is that I always knew, stepping into this campaign, that we were never going to outspend the incumbent. I mean, she's a multimillionaire, married to a billionaire. She takes corporate PAC money. If you look at her last cycle of last year, 70-80% of her dollars come from corporations. When you look
Hmm.
at our financing, my campaign, about 95% of my donors are all individuals, right? That 5% is like donation from the Working Families Party or the nurses or the United Auto Workers, but the majority of my funding come from everyday people. And that's the type of movement and campaign that we're running. And so we got a real good shot. We're running to win and make top two. We just did polling as well. I'm happy to share with you our polling
Hmm.
numbers. Um, and
Go
we're
ahead.
looking like we're gonna make top two, if not number one. And I know this because I've been seeing text messages from people that, the congresswoman is using her own funding to now attack Republicans because she's afraid that the Republicans are going to consolidate, and now she has to compete with me for the Democrat votes and the decline of state and the independents. So,
Mm-hmm.
according to our polling that came out just a few weeks ago, and they pulled it pretty conservative, meaning they leaned very heavily on, for the congresswoman. That when you
Mm-hmm.
put my name and her name next to each other, right? This is assuming they know everything about Doris Matsui. I trail her 7 points. Now that's actually not bad. Just my name. This is just my name. That's actually not bad. I thought I was in the double digits behind her, trailing only 7 points. When you
Mm-hmm.
put our my title and my title as a councilwoman, as an educator, and my bio, we are literally neck to neck. This is not
Mm-hmm.
messaging, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you actually apply the message around my position on ending endless wars, on ICE, on healthcare, we are actually 30 points ahead among Democratic voters.
Mm-hmm.
The question and the test for us now, though, is
Mm-hmm.
because that's just cool. That tells us what is out there. The test now is, can we raise the money and can we build enough robust field campaign to saturate our universe and to turn out the vote and to make sure that voters know there is another option on the ballot. For 21 years, or actually, I would say for 47 years, there's only been a Matsui on the ballot. There is another
Nothing
option on the
else.
ballot, someone
Mm-hmm.
who is bold, courageous, and ready to fight for our working families. And when voters know who we are and our message, we
Hmm.
win.
What is your argument to those people like moderates or centrist, like a established moderate candidate and a progressive candidate? Some people think we need more moderates and centrist people. Like, what's your message to them?
My message is moderates and centrists and establishment. If they would have saved us, we wouldn't be here today.
Hmm.
We wouldn't be here today because a lot of the Democrats they're like, we have to be more moderate, right? But that's the issue. Like, I think when we champion issues around healthcare, housing, childcare, around immigration rights, that is when we win because we are actually improving the social conditions of people's lives, right? And that's if that means being a progressive, then yeah, I'm a progressive because I want to make sure everybody has healthcare. I want to make sure everyone has housing. I want to make sure that ICE is not separating our families. If that makes me a progressive in the left, then it makes me a progressive, right? Because I want to see progress in our communities. And I would say, to those that, well, we need more moderate Dems. It's like, well, we've had that. We've had that.
Hmm.
Look where it got us.
Hmm.
I'll just
Okay.
leave it there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you criticized career politicians, but you've been in some sort of political,
Yes.
yeah, for
Yes.
10 years. So,
Yes.
like,
And
how does make you different?
yeah, because I am no stranger to taking on the establishment. It is no secret that on the city council, I am often on the 7-2 or the 8-1. I am
Mm-hmm.
usually the one speaking truth to power. I am the one that will really share what is happening on the ground. And so it is no secret that when I ran for Congress, that the three mayors of the largest city in Congressional District 7 threw their support. It is no secret that the majority of the city council have endorsed my opponent, although I have the endorsement of the two young millennials on the city council, my two colleagues, right? But I am no stranger to taking on the establishment. I am an elected official. I was on the school board for a term, a city council. I've had 10 years of governing experience fighting and delivering for working families, but I am no stranger to taking on the establishment. And that means even taking on folks that I serve with because I want to make sure that we are fighting for our families. And so folks often see me as an outsider, even though I'm an elected official, right? And I wear that badge with pride because I am from the community, and my North Star is fighting for the people that I represent.
Uh, Miss Mai Vang, let's discuss a different issue. You are no stranger to persecution. You're no stranger to transnational repression. Your family, you're a child of refugee family
Yeah.
who fled the war, who have been here. You're born here. You've seen those kind of things. Our community, the Sikh Americans, have seen the same kind of thing. How do you see the similarities, and where do you stand on transnational repression?
Yeah. Well, first, let me just say we have a lot in common. Especially as a daughter of refugee and among refugees and our families fleeing persecution, I really believe that transitional repression must end. It has to end. And I actually support the prosecution of the Indian government agents that plotted to murder Sikhs in our country. I've called on the federal government. I've called on the federal government, our state government, to provide more protection and funding. And as a congresswoman, my commitment is I would call on the federal government to increase funding to protect members of our community, members of our local Sikh community that have been warned by the FBI that their lives are at risk, right? The safety and security of Sikh in America will be a top priority for me. It's a top priority for safety. It's a top priority for all of our families, and I think that it's really important that our Sikh community knows that they belong and that they're protected and that they're seen.
How do you see your own party governor Newsom vetoed a transnational repression bill here in California, the SB 509, which was unanimously bipartisan support passed and sent to him? How do you see that? What is your party doing on that? I would say your party's governor doing on that.
My party's not doing anything on that. So let me just start off with that. This is also a party that currently does not support me for my run for Congress because they are part of the establishment. And I think so oftentimes our communities that have been rendered invisible or been oppressed, often their voices are not heard. Their voice absolutely is not heard. And I know that as a councilwoman, at the city level, I have voted, I have made statements recognizing the 1984 genocide. And I will support similar resolution when
So,
I'm
do
in
you
Congress.
believe in 1984 genocide was committed against Sikhs by the Indian state?
Yes, yes, yes. And it's through the lived experience of what folks have shared with me. I think it is not mine to judge. Just like as our family were prosecuted, fled, there was massacred of our Hmong people. Who is it to question my own lived history when I know that
Hmm.
happened, right? And I think that it is our role as elected officials to center those lived experience and uplift the truth. I think that that's really important. We have to be able to be bold and courageous enough to tell the truth of what happened. So
Do you think there should be some sort of law, some sort of uh, proposal or a bill at the Congress level against transnational repression? And I know there are certain pending in there right now. If
yeah.
you were to be there, would you support them?
Yes, absolutely. And I would actually work with the local community here as well, and to have a conversation to see if they support if there is language missing from the resolution, right? Are there things to be added? And so I never do anything alone. I always do it with the community, and so I look forward to doing that. And yes, I absolutely would support a resolution in Congress.
Does your community members, the Hmong community, feel the pressure and the surveillance and the effects of transnational repression?
Absolutely. I think our Hmong communities are living in fear now. Just last month, Raj, I actually went to the federal mosque building with my uncle.
Mhm.
Um, and he does his annual check in at the federal building. And he was really afraid. He asked me, should I go or should I not go under this administration, right? And I told him it is your choice to make. I will give you all the options. I think we need to have family safety planning, but it is up to you. But if you don't go, then you'll be breaking a law, right? And I went with him. We waited for 30 minutes. They called his name, and luckily, ICE agents didn't come and take him. And 3 months from now, he's not going to go back. But I feel like our communities they're living in fear all the time, even in this country, and they have no country to go back to because for some of our Hmong people who fled the war in Laos, the secret war in Laos, because the United States recruited the Hmong people to fight in the secret war,
Mhm.
as you know the history, and then the United States withdrew their troops. There was a genocide of our people. Folks fled from Laos to Thailand, and there were people that were born in Thailand that didn't get weren't recognized by the Thai government,
Hmm.
right? So they're almost stateless. And so they weren't born in Laos, they were born in Thailand, but they were born in the refugee camps and they're stateless. So where do they go? We're a community that's prosecuted, that's that's frowned upon. Like, where do they belong here? They belong in this country. And so when I get to the halls of Congress, I want to make sure that all of our people, my people, is seen and recognized and know that they belong here.
So California has a huge population of Sikhs, and I would say 30-40% of that population lives near your district or in your district. A lot of Sikh activists show up uh, to the capital talking about these rights, their own rights, and we have seen certain organizations. I would say the Indian state organization pushing back on their claims or pushing back on their things. What have happened to them? How, as a congresswoman, could you protect their freedom of speech and their their message delivering thing? How could you protect that?
Well, our rights are under attack right now. Freedom of speech is under attack right now, and it's one of the most fundamental thing we have in this country. And so I will continue to fight to make sure that our First Amendment rights is protected, that everyone has a right to speak their truth. That is of utmost importance. That is the only way that we can educate each other about what's really happening in our lived experience. And so, as a congresswoman, I would continue to fight to make sure that those rights are protected. I have done everything I can also at the local level as a councilwoman to hold the line and to reaffirm our commitment to First Amendment rights, making sure that protesters, activists, that when they are speaking their truth, that they're also protected. That is of utmost importance. And so I would continue to do that when I'm a congresswoman as well.
A lot of our my community members, we know inside that they have been harassed, they face that TNR issue, but they remain silent. Why do you think is that an issue, and what could you do to ensure that they can speak up and have these things reported?
Yeah. Well, one, I think it's all about organizing and making sure that we have the infrastructure so that residents and families can come forward. That's really important, and making sure that their rights are protected. The other piece is also allies, that it can't just be Raj, it can't just be you going out to speak for your community. It can't just be I coming out to speak for the Hmong community. We all have to be speaking truth
Together.
to power and being allies in this fight, right? It can't just be the Sikh community alone or the Punjabi community alone doing this work. We need to make sure that we're building broad coalition and making sure that we have allies in this work, and that folks need to be speaking truth to power and standing up for everyone's rights. Because when your rights are under attack, all of our rights are under attack. And it's really important that we build coalition. And as a community organizer, I have a track record of doing that, of building broad coalition for our liberation.
Recently, Gurdwara from within Bay Area, they filed a FARA complaint against one of the organizations, which they think that is working directly with the Indian government. It's been it's been acting. It's a non-profit here in US, but acting on behalf of India. That's what they are alleging to be.
Mm.
So how can you bring that issue to the forefront? That is that something really happening, and if that is happening, what could be the course of action against those kind of organizations?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question, and thank you for so much for bringing that to my attention. I think making sure that all of our communities are protected. I think I want to learn a little bit more about that, and it's really unfortunate that that's happening, and that your community is under attack from these organizations. And we have to do more to protect our organizations. But I really appreciate you bring that to my attention. I was not aware of that, and I just want to say thank you. And I think that there's more that we could be doing, working with organizations to protect. My team's telling me I have to get off for another
No
meeting.
worries. Yeah, no worries. No,
Yeah.
thank you, Mai Vang, for talking to us, talking candidly on so many issues.
Yes,
And
Raj.
please, before you go, tell us what are your areas where people will see your name on the ballot.
Yeah. Well, again, Raj, thank you so much for having me on. We have 27 days until election. Congressional District 7 encompasses Sacramento, Elk Grove, Lodi, Galt, El Dorado, Placerville, Cameron Park, Shingle Spring. It is a beautiful district, and I'm looking forward to finishing strong the next 27 days. But if you want to get involved and learn more about our campaign, you can go to maiforus.com to learn more. That's MAIFORUS.com. And again, just incredibly honored to be on the campaign trail, but really to fight for our families. Something I often share is that I'm not running alone. I'm running with all of you. Raj, you're running with me too. We are running together because we're taking on an institution and establishment. I cannot do this alone without the people. And I am so grateful for the love and the support. And when I get to the halls of Congress, I'm not going alone, Raj. I'm taking you with me. I hope to be back on as well, sharing the updates from our congressional office. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to interview.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Sat Sri Akal.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks.